2024. This is a film by M. Night Shyamalan, and it features Salika Shyamalan as Lady Raven, who um, is a, a, a superstar singer, and it's at her concert where a father and daughter are going, and they're the protagonists as such. We mainly see Josh Hartnett's character. He's the father. He's called Cooper, and his daughter is Riley, played by Ariel Donahue. Now, at the start, it seemed like a normal concert, apart from Cooper is highly vigilant, and, um, to start with, I was thinking the messaging suggests that, um, he's just a very careful individual. Maybe he's had a lot of training, and so he's gonna be able to get out of some major predicament that there's some big disaster that's about to unfold at this concert. That was my idea of what the storyline was going to be. It wasn't quite like that. I've watched the trailer since. Before watching the trailer, I only had the synopsis, and I didn't quite follow that as it was. The trailer does reveal something which I thought might be a spoiler, and it was something I didn't realize until about 30 minutes into the film. However, to discuss this film further, I think I will have to talk about that, simply because otherwise I'll just say, well, I mean, I could say right now that it was a fairly interesting film. It was entertaining, it was well acted, and it had a lot of tension. And I could say that my score would be 7.5 out of 10. However, now I'm going to go into semi-spoiler territory, and it's because it's stuff that does come out in the trailer, so it isn't really a spoiler, but it's not something that I knew at the start of this film. So you've been warned, I'm going to talk about it. And that is that it becomes clear that, even in the trailer, that Cooper is possibly malicious. He is doing stuff, and you think, what on earth is he up to? There's a point, a little while into the film, where he suddenly pushes a woman down the stairs. And it's just like, why did he do that? And a bit later, he puts a bottle of some substance into a deep fryer, and it acts like a time bomb. It goes off, it explodes, injures a woman badly, the cook, and that's down to him, and it's quite clearly him. And you think, "Oh my gosh," because what is happening? He has met someone through his work. He's a firefighter, and he's met someone who works at this stadium. It's actually filmed in a real stadium in Toronto, but it's got a false name. I looked it up. I thought, "Oh, I see. Yeah, it's best to fictionalize the stadium. You don't want to give stadiums a bad reputation." And it's made out to be somewhere in the US, or I don't know, somewhere like Baltimore, some medium-sized city. And the confusion is that Cooper seems to care about his daughter, but of course, there are stories of people with nefarious intent who don't harm their own family but are malicious to other people, and this is what seems to be happening. And in his role as a firefighter, he meets a stall holder downstairs, and he asks, "Oh, well, why is there so many police and army presence around this stadium?" And this guy who has his trust says, "Well, I'm not supposed to tell anyone, but they're looking for um, this particular, well, serial killer, someone who's doing awful stuff around that city, and they've been tipped off that this person's going to be at the stadium, and because he steals um, police radios, stuff like that, he's got the knowledge to pick up, to survive, to pick up information that he needs to use, and um, it becomes really uncomfortable once you know all this, but you do know it for most of the film. I mean, he sweet talks his way into getting a backstage pass. He lies about his daughter being ill, and awful stuff happens. And um, I think, oh gosh, what is going to happen? Is the singer going to be threatened? Is are other people? Is it what's at stake here? Could be really serious. It could be, well, anything serious, even um, the deaths that have happened, and you're now seeing things from the perspective of the killer in our midst, the person who's going around the stadium. And that's not usually what happens. We don't usually, I mean, back in years ago in the 60s, 70s, perhaps, there was a code of conduct in the film industry. I think it was an unwritten rule that the baddies weren't allowed to win, that the moral side would win outright by the end of the film. Eventually, there were twists, and especially horror films, you would often get films where the baddie would win. And I'm not going to say, obviously, what happens in this film towards the end, but there's a lot of nefarious stuff, and it gets really tense because Cooper knows exactly how to sweet talk people until he gets to such a position of power that he can reveal that he unveils his true identity as this awful individual, and then manipulates the people who he has control over to do what he wants so that he can attempt to escape, that sort of thing. That keeps happening, and you think, "Oh my gosh." Um, so you got the tension, you see it all from the wrong angle, and it has that topsy-turvy element, and I've seen quite a few films like that. I've probably seen M. Night Shyamalan films like that before. Can't remember if Devil was one of his films, but there are quite a lot of films that really feel ominous, and they are very interesting. It's really looking at society from the different perspective. I mean, things like The Joker in 2019, where I'd like to review that in a way, but you get the audience become sympathetic, I think, with the character because of how they've been mistreated so often. Maybe not completely, but you do feel some sympathy. You think, I can see how that that develops. That's not necessarily what happens here. I mean, there's themes of control, about male violence. There's um, yeah, really awful stuff. Um, I won't say any more because um, there's no point, and you've got to have some tension to feel like it's worth watching this film. There's all I think it is entertaining the way you watch what happens, but every step, it's like all the innocent people will give their trust, and you think, "Oh my gosh, what are they doing?" And of course, you understand it if he's so malicious. He can convince them. You know, he appeals to the better side of human nature. People often bend the rules to let someone who they're thinking they're doing a good favor for. I don't know. Yeah, that's that's my observation. It's fairly simple, I guess. It's straightforward emotional manipulation in a way because we all go on that sort of roller coaster of thinking, I mean, wow, I don't really want this protagonist to win, but what happens if he does? You know, I mean, who who's who's threatened? And it could be any of a huge number of people that he interacts with. And yeah, interesting. Well, so I said 7.5 out of 10. That's what the score I will give it because it kept it kept me going, and it was quite a reasonable film. I'd love to know what you think. Thanks for watching. Please like if you like this review. Please subscribe. Thanks if you do subscribe. Hit that notification button to find out about more films. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.